This is MSP Breakthrough, where successful MSP owners walk us through the pivotal moments that put them over the top.
Hey everyone, this is MSP Breakthrough. I am Jonathan Crow, Director of Content and Community at Ninja RMM. I've got with me Tom Watson, our Channel Chief Advisor. And for this episode, Tom and I actually talked to our guests together. We spoke with Shawn Freeman. He is a former MSP owner of TWT Group, and he stuck around. He's now currently at Fully Managed, the company that acquired his MSP. Tom, this is a really great conversation. I really enjoyed this one. What's something that stuck out with you?
In particular, Shawn goes into detail about how much the owner of a business's time is worth. He even tells us how he calculated that and then how he used that number to figure out where to best allocate his hours in the day.
I love how he went about this. Everyone listening, you're definitely going to love it too. Let's check it out. So Shawn, you're super active on LinkedIn. I follow you. I'm always really happy to see your posts because they're incredibly thoughtful. They're not just strictly directed towards tech or even being an MSP. You got great stuff, so you're a good follow. I saw you had a comment recently, and you're replying to a video that Colin Knox put up. Tom just interviewed Colin last week, I think.
Yep.
And it was going back to the importance of planning out further, which is kind of something that you just touched on with acting bigger than you are ahead of time. So you mentioned that was maybe a turning point for you as well, that you started looking at your business in terms of what are we trying to accomplish in the next, not month, not quarter, but year, further out, year and a half, 2 years. And what do we need to do to get there? Curious about what that transition looked like for you and where it occurred. Were you at a certain revenue point or a certain inflection point with the company?
I think, as soon as we started realizing we're having, 50% years almost, like I started to figure out, I said, okay, well, I need to know what what employees I need on board in 6 months. I need to know that today so that I can work towards that because, it takes time to hire people. And then everything else falls around that, right? We're a people business. So, for me, it was really, it's perspective, right? It's just, again, you have these self-fulfilling prophecies and you say, okay, we want to grow another 50% this year. Okay, what's that going to look like? But then the big picture is like, okay, well, in 3 years, we're going to be, 150% bigger than we are compounded too, right? So it's, I really found that was powerful for sure. And it also just sharing it with the team too. Like I found that was super powerful because a lot of the times I found my team didn't realize things like that. Like, hey, if we keep this up, like we went from 8 to 20 in 18 months. Like, it's, I don't think that they realized that was going to happen. And so when you put that in front of them, then they're like, oh, okay. They get amped up. As employees, we all want to know where we're going, right? Like what's my future at this company? How can I contribute? And then all the decisions you're making, sometimes right then, like if you stayed at that size of a business, it might not make sense. But if you're going to be, 70% bigger in 18 months, then it totally makes sense. Like paying for tools that are more expensive now that you don't quite need, but you will, right? Stuff like that comes into play. Automation is huge, right? If you can get your automation done really early, then that scales, right? So it's focusing on those types of things. And yeah, just really involving your team. I think that was a huge piece for us. Really giving them ownership made me kind of step out and step back and be the CEO and not be the tech guy. Because that's a hard part for a lot of people is to get out of the business and then become the leader, right? And create the vision. Because that's what you're there for. You're there for the vision and support, right? That's all you should be doing as a CEO once you get to 10 plus, right? You shouldn't be closing tickets or purchasing stuff anymore or doing invoicing anymore, right? Like that should get off your plate at that time, and having a good team that understands the kind of overall strategy is key.
Well, that's great. And I can tell you, Jonathan's sitting there laughing because he knows you just hit on a couple of my huge points that I like to talk to MSPs about. One is that automation and actually doing it.
Yeah.
Funny because we just dropped an article about that today about RMM.
Yeah.
But additionally, letting go of things and stopping doing things that aren't going to further your business. And I think we talked about in our last MSP live chat, I was talking about not doing bookkeeping anymore, how I had to make that decision because that was time intensive. I did not enjoy it and I wasn't good at it. But I think a big message for it is that, if you want to scale your business, you have to decide what parts of the business that you can scale and focus on those and not be doing everything. Can you maybe take us back to that time when you started saying no to people and clients and sometimes other managers in your company?
Yeah, for sure. I think we do an annual review of customers and say, like, are they a good fit, right? Do they meet the values? Are they profitable? And if either one of those is, like, if they're profitable but they don't meet our values and they're just a pain and people hate working with them, we'll get rid of them even if they're profitable. And it's amazing, the first time we did that, like, I don't think the team, I'm pretty sure they thought they were dreaming. And just the response was amazing. And the internal morale, the culture, culture is another huge piece. Maybe we can touch on that next. But that's really, like, again, we're all people. We all need to be motivated. We all want to enjoy, we all enjoy our work, coming to work. We want to have purpose, right? And yeah, just figuring out those things. Like, it's funny, I like to travel, so I always, like, joked, and it's there's kind of some truth to it, is like my travel was almost a delegation strategy, because when I was away I couldn't do work other than chat with my team and help them, right? I couldn't do bookkeeping and scanning receipts and stuff, so I had to delegate that stuff. But you almost need to, like, look yourself in the mirror and say, yeah, what am I good at? What should somebody else be doing? And then the other thing too is just realizing that, like, your time as your business grows, your hourly rate as an owner, as CEO, keeps going up, right? And so if you're doing $2-3 million in revenue, you're solely responsible for that, supporting that revenue. So if you take $3 million in revenue divided by 2,200 hours in a year that you might work, or maybe 4,000 hours as a CEO, and figure out what your hourly rate is, you'd be surprised. It's in the, like, several hundreds or maybe thousands of dollars an hour. And, would you pay your bookkeeper $1,000 an hour? Probably not.
Wow.
So just figuring, and I think, like, a lot of IT guys are analytical and they're data focused. And so it's just another perspective to, like, make it click, I think, is what a lot of people need.
I love those because it's such a thing. I mean, we're recording this right after New Year's, and everyone has the resolutions, right? And resolutions famously fail. And it's because people just set goals, but they don't attach them to things that actually make it click and actually establish habits. I love two things that you just talked about. First of all, I love the figuring out you as a CEO, your hourly rate, and really just keeping that in mind as everything comes across your desk. Is this worth X amount of dollars an hour? I think that's great. The other thing I love is the self-imposed exile. Having that as, like, okay, I like, in your case, you love to travel, you're going to go on vacations, and what a win-win for everybody, right? Like, first of all, you get to have time to yourself, you get to unplug, you get to go to an amazing place. And then your team gets to be like, okay, we get to spread our wings a little bit because Shawn's away. But forcing yourself to do it, it's just kind of a funny thing of, like, okay, I got to put in my work. I have to force myself to go to an exotic beach somewhere.
Yeah,
sounds great.
It's funny. I had a joke with my salesperson that every time I went away, he signed a deal, and I'm pretty sure it's still true. I mean, we haven't traveled all year, but I think the last time I did travel, he signed a deal, it's kind of funny. And you kind of nailed on a point there too. It's just like trusting your people, right? I think that's the thing a lot of people struggle with too, right? Which, there's lots of things around that. And, if you don't trust them, then why did you hire them? And, you got to figure that out as a manager, right? And I did the quick math. Like, if you're doing 3 million in revenue, your hourly rate of revenue that you're responsible for is $1,300, more than $1,300 an hour. So it's like, it's significant, right? And it just keeps growing. So the other trick I used is the Eisenhower matrix. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but basically it's 4 quadrants, and you can take any task, you can stick them in it, and quadrant 1 is it's important and it's urgent. So you do it and try to make sure less of those happen. Server fires, right? It's important, but it's not urgent. Book it out. And those are really the only 2 things you should be doing, because everything else is not important and it's urgent. So give it to a team member. And the other ones are not important and not urgent. So don't do it. So I think if you break everything you're doing out into those things, only 2 of them are for you to do. So the other ones you get rid of, and then only one of them is actually like, got to do it right now. So then you can get focused on what you need to be doing.
Yeah, I think we've got a few minutes left. I actually have one more. I think there's another very obvious breakthrough to me that we haven't covered yet.
Sure.
What I'm hearing, you scaled your MSP very quickly. I mean, you said a 700K increase per year. Maybe you can take us back to when this business started and how fast that scaling is. And what in particular I'm interested in there for a breakthrough is what you did in terms of sales in there. Did you hire salespeople? What happened? Did you put particular marketing in place? Because when I hear about numbers increasing that fast, I know that it's not just some organic process. There's some real thought put into it, and you're doing something that's accelerating the business that quickly.
For sure. Yeah, so our early growth, obviously, as a percentage was high, because if you go from 100,000 to 200,000, there's 100% growth, right? So you can't really use percentages all the time. But I would say our first, we were 8.5 years old before we merged with Fully Managed. I would say probably our first 4 were the slowest growth we had, and then it really clicked, right? We by that time, we had done a bunch of marketing. We got our name out there. We had some really good clients that knew us and talked about us. A lot of our growth was from referral, right? So what we did is we just built up a network of people that loved us, and that's right. As an MSP, what more could you ask for, right? So we did that, and then we one of the people that was with us, we moved him into an outbound sales position. But a lot of his leads were referrals. They were from our current client base. They were from our network. But he was hitting his quota within 7 months of the year, right? So he was killing it. And but it wasn't like we had somebody calling. We didn't have outbound sales. We didn't do much digital advertising. We had a website and we had a network, right? Because again, it's people business. I always said, like, IT, lawyers, and accountants, like, if you're going to hire one, if you need to change it, you're going to go ask your friends who they use, and you're probably going to go with that person. So, we set up great partnerships with accounting firms who were clients, and then it's a partnership, right? They would refer business to us. We would do the same, and we take care of each other, right? And really turn clients into true partners. And that was huge. I think. We weren't, our outbound salesperson wasn't going door to door knocking. He was meeting with people and building relationships and going for lunches and grabbing a beer and stuff like that really our small business clients want. Maybe you sell differently to enterprise clients, of course, but the SMB world, they want to know that you want to take care of them, and they want to know they can trust you, and they want to know you care about them, right? And that was huge. And it takes time to build your brand up. In any city, if you have a new brand, it's going to take you 3 or 4 years to get it out there. Like, unless you're dumping hundreds of thousands of dollars into marketing, maybe not. But if you want to do that organically. But then the other thing too, as a business owner, it was my first business, right? So you're obviously super, you're conservative at the beginning, right? You got to save the money in the bank. You got to manage financials. You're hiring people. You want to make sure you don't need to lay them off. So it's obviously, once you get to that point where, okay, you're making a good salary as the owner, everyone's making a good salary, you're putting cash in the bank, your cash flow is good, then you can start to say, okay, how do we reinvest that in marketing and getting our name out there and different events? We found events were super successful too. Partnering up with people like Ninja and doing events and bringing clients and prospects into the room, because then our clients will tell the prospects that we're awesome, and off we go. And a week later we sign a proposal, right? So we found events were really good. Obviously 2020 kibosh that marketing tactic for everybody, but hopefully later this year we can do that. So I guess that's, in a nutshell, that's a bunch of the things we did.
Now, I heard something in particular there that I want our audience to really tune into, is that you move someone into outside sales. And so what I'm seeing here is all MSPs get referrals. But what happens is the referrals often, there is not a dedicated person assigned to follow up on things, and there's no cadence to do so. There's no use of the CRM. And by moving someone into that role, you now had someone that was their job. Their sole job was to follow up on these things. And that becomes self-fulfilling then. And that makes sure those referrals are more likely to close. It makes sure there's more likely to be more because you're timely about it. So it's not always necessary to dump a bunch of money into marketing. It's not always necessary to bang on doors or to do a really aggressive outbound, but it is important that you yourself or you dedicate someone in your company to make sure they're following up on these leads. Otherwise, what happens is you get a referral and you wait 2 weeks to contact them. Well, you might have just missed your window. They probably talked to someone else.
Yeah,
so
because when they need to change.
Yeah,
when they need to change, they need to change pretty quick usually. The other thing too is that, we would have our outbound salesperson in our weekly team meeting with everybody. He would go through his list of leads, and there's countless amount of times where somebody's like, oh, I know somebody there.
Yeah.
And then it's like, boom, done. And if it wasn't a referral even if it was a referral from a client, then they know an employee that's inside, and off we go, right? Like, we don't even need to compete because that person's going to be like, yeah, we're going to go with them. So we had the CRM to do that, and we went through it we engaged the whole team, and then they felt part of like the whole process. And it wasn't just, sales wasn't just a silo too, right? That becomes a problem. We still do that today. So that's huge. The other thing too is one more trick, obviously I'll give away to everybody, is when we were doing our QBRs with our clients, the end question is like, how are we doing? Anything we can improve? And then the final question is, if you know anybody that could use our help, let me know. And because a lot of people just don't think about it. And if you trigger them, like if you just put that idea in their head, then they're like, oh yeah, of course, I love you guys and I want to help you. And oh, my friend, yeah, he just started a new accounting company. Let me introduce you. And like that little, just, it's not a salesy thing, but it's just like, hey, let us know.
Thanks for listening to MSP Breakthrough, brought to you by Ninja RMM. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, like, or give us a review.